All right, let's get started. My name is Cassie Hobridge. I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development for Downtown Houston Plus, which includes the Downtown Redevelopment Authority, Central Houston, Inc., and the Houston Downtown Management District. And I will allow my colleague to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Brendan Harrison, and I'm the Economic Development Coordinator and Research Specialist here.
So I did want to emphasize, again, what our entities are and who we represent. While this report is technically produced by the Downtown District, we, again, staff all three of these entities. And so throughout the report, should you have any questions about one of these three entities or Downtown Houston Plus overall, please don't hesitate to ask. What I'm going to do before diving into our top 5 takeaways from this report is situate you a bit with this quarterly report and what makes it special and something different that our organization has been working on. So the legacy of our organization, namely Central Houston, includes publishing a quarterly report featuring traditional and expected market insights and analyses. What we have done differently for both Q4 2023 and Q3 2023 is take that legacy report and expand on it, not only with design, but also with content. The main thing we're doing differently and we want to speak to today is we want to evoke new perspectives about downtown. Oftentimes, and many of you on this call probably have experienced this, being people that work in and around downtown, is that people have questions about what is there to do downtown? How are parks utilized? How are people getting around other than car? This is something that we take seriously. We want to unpack both with sort of capital E economic data, as well as other insights. We also want to talk about the outsized impact of our beloved destinations. And the destinations I'm referring to include, of course, George R. Brown, Discovery Green, our stadiums, and our music venues. What kind of impact do these places have on downtown's economy and the community at large? And like I mentioned, this is also a redesign of our report. Here's a peek inside the Q4 report, which we'll be talking about today. And we want to just really drive home our goal here, which was to design something that is accessible to all downtowners, to all Houstonians that might want to learn more about what's going on in downtown Houston, but not compromise the integral data of the report. And so we have a really lovely balance that we worked with a great design team to strike throughout the report. Key information, digestible, the details are there should you want them. All right, with that, what we're going to do now is dive into the top 5 takeaways from the report. I'm going to pause for a moment and just explain how we're going to go through this. We'll go through each one at a time, and explain a bit about our specific takeaways and how we arrived at them. If you are interested in sort of reading along as we do this, you can go on our website under Do Business, Research and Reports, and pull up the quarterly report should you want to read along. At the end, we'll pause after the final slide for Q&A. We expect to have about 10 minutes for Q&A. You'll be able to type in your questions, and we have a colleague here who will be able to ensure that we don't miss your questions that are typed in, and we'll speak to them and we'll flip the camera on at that point. All right, let's dive in. So number 1 takeaway that we wanted to really drive home for you all today is that Q4 is a time for cooler weather in Houston. And I know we all love it, but what does it mean for downtown? What we saw is that the visitation of downtown remains steady quarter over quarter and increased year over year. When it comes to cooler weather, we see people accessing downtown more and more by bike and by foot. One great statistic that drives home this point is one that we got from the Houston Parks Board. It's featured in our quarterly report, which is over 60,000 walkers, joggers, and cyclists enjoy the Bayou trails immediately adjacent to downtown in Q4. That's more than the population of Galveston And those are only the bike trails and walking trails along the bayou that touch the northern part of downtown. This is an outstanding figure, and it shows that in many ways, downtown is really becoming a destination for those that want to live, work, and play downtown. Like I mentioned, we saw steady visitation. And so yes, the cooler weather beckoned those to come to downtown by bike and by foot, but also people were coming here other ways, be it driving here, taking rideshare, or public transportation. And that's reflected in the number of unique visitors we saw in Q4, 3.5 million. The number of visits, which is 9.2 million. I also want to emphasize here that the data that we're surfacing is Placer data. This is now a national best practice for understanding pedestrian activity. And so the data points here that you can see only include visitors on the right-hand side. On the left, you can see why it is that we focus so much on visitors to downtown. They represent the bulk of who you see when you are walking around downtown or exploring or enjoying downtown. We also look at non-resident workers and residents as well, of course. Fun fact is that year over year, we had at least 700,000 more visits paid to downtown when compared to 2022. All right, second thing that we want to lift up about Q4, something that was really outstanding and unique, is that Houston went downtown for the holidays. We did a clever analysis, I would say, of the key destinations that people visited in order to enjoy the City Lights event. A series of events put on by our organization in collaboration with Houston First, Discovery Green, the Heritage Society, Post, and other partners. What we saw when we ran the numbers for visits to downtown at those locations in the evening hours, when they are there to see quite literally the city lights, we saw nearly 1 million visits paid to downtown. It's about 1/10 of the visits, if not more, that were made to downtown in the quarter alone. And that's just nighttime. This means that we can say with great confidence that Houston certainly went downtown for the holidays. It doesn't stop there. We have some other, what I like to think of as fun but meaningful data points to lift up to about the City Lights event. Not only did we have 11 holiday villages around downtown, giving people really wonderful opportunity to explore this great neighborhood, but we also saw a pretty incredible uptick in visitation in other ways. For instance, our friends at Discovery Green shared with us this wonderful insight, which is they saw a 20% increase year over year in the number of ice skaters that enjoyed their rink. We also were very inclusive here in downtown, and we wanted to celebrate the ethnic diversity of Houston and ensure that no matter who you were, if you came downtown for the holidays, you and your family felt reflected in the kinds of experiences you could have. We had 4 Santas of different races and ethnicities at our parks. We also were inclusive of dogs, and we had at least over 2,400 dogs attend dog-friendly events in downtown. So a little bit of sweet, a little bit of, very thoughtful and insightful data about holidays. Nonetheless, it's indisputable that holidays and the attractions we stand up down here do a great deal to ensure visitation to downtown in Q4. So I mentioned at the beginning the impact of our downtown destinations and wanting to use this report as a way to talk about the impact of our stadiums and our performance venues. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brendan to walk us through this very interesting chart that tells us quite a lot about the impact our events at stadiums and other venues have on downtown's economy.
Yeah, so as we saw earlier, visitors now dominate the daily population downtown. From the Theater District to Minute Maid Park and Toyota Center to George R. Brown, these major event venues continue to bring visitors down in the largest proportions. So the chart we see up here measures the change from the baseline average of downtown Houston visits. And we can see all 5 peaks in Q4 were correlated with the events at Minute Maid Park and the Toyota Center for baseball games, basketball games, and concerts. So the biggest positive deviation from the average occurred November 18th, where there was 2 concerts downtown. And the largest negative deviation was on Christmas Day, as you can see at the end of the chart. So why is this important? With about 2/3 of our downtown retail being comprised of food and beverage establishments, this information can be used by them to make more informed decisions on things like opening hours, anticipating major events to capture that audience, and more. And then on our end, we can also use this information more effectively to deploy our clean and safe teams, anticipate passive travelers for visitors, and coordinate our special events and programs around these other major events happening. So then leading into my next point, our friends at Houston First shared an interesting stat with us that during the week of October 1st, the Houston CBD saw gains of 5% in both occupancy and demand year over year, as well as 14 and 20% year over year increases in ADR and RevPAR. So these gains were particularly impactful midweek leading up to the ALDS Game 1 and 2 series against the Twins that were at the beginning of the chart previous. So this is just indicating to us that visitors came early to Houston and stayed for the games. So moving on to hotels, this is kind of important to anticipate demand, as almost half of our hotel rooms within the 610 loop are located downtown. And these major events generate significant demand for hotels downtown, and the market is continuing to grow. So in Q4, we had Moxie opened, and that brought the total hotel room count to just over 8,600 rooms downtown. And additionally, there are another nearly 500 rooms under construction, and those are between two dual branded hotels that are scheduled to deliver in 2025. So as Houston continues to host major events like the 2026 World Cup and hopefully future Astros and Rockets playoff series, the market will need to continue to support this growing visitor base. So moving on to office, we have quality office offerings kept downtown stable and prepared for more. So approximately 70% of all office space downtown is actually made up of Class A space, including what we can see on the screen there with 1550 on the green. So as flight to quality ensues, it's important that downtown has top of the line, well amenitized space to cater to the new demands of today's office worker. And mainly we can see this trend really developing through leasing activity, where in 2023, Class A leases made up about 90% of total leasing activity and 90% in Q4. So from 1999 to 2023, Class A leases represented about 81% of total leasing activity, which just kind of shows you the difference in how in the later years, there's really been a focus on that premium office space offerings. So as there's been this significant in recent years, as employers navigate this post-COVID work week to figure out what will entice visitors or employees back to the office, at least for part of the week in a hybrid schedule. So over the last few years, downtown Houston has been no stranger to rising office vacancy rates, I'm sure, as we all know. But in the near term, vacancy seems to at least have started to stabilize and level off, at least temporarily, with a 0.1% decrease compared to Q3 and no change year over year. So asking rents have dipped slightly compared to Q3. However, year over year, they are not up only downtown, but across all office space within the 610 loop overall. And with there being no new construction downtown and pretty modest construction within the loop, we won't at least have to worry about supply side pressures weighing down an already burdened market. And looking ahead to 2024 and 2025, the hope is that office conversion projects and adaptive reuse of underperforming properties will bring the market back into equilibrium and also enhance the future of downtown as more than just office and as truly a live, work, play neighborhood. So moving on to housing, it is not quite the same story, but in a more positive aspect. So the residential market downtown, along with overall multifamily market within the 610 loop, has seen a healthy increase in inventory over the last year and also has a robust pipeline scheduled to be delivered over the next few years. So speaking on some of these office to residential conversions, we have Elevate, which was delivered in Q4, and that was increased our residential supply to a little over 7,700 units. And additionally, that explains the increase in vacancy that we see quarter over quarter that is much larger than the greater area. And while we also see declining asking rents, that's a trend seen across the wider market. So that's not specific to downtown. And two primary reasons for this are one, a stabilization after a couple of years of steady rent growth, and two, just an influx of new supply. Because new supply entering the market can typically bring rents down from an increase in competition and the new properties offering discounts and concessions to lease up their property. Additionally, as more units come online to the market, vacancy will remain higher until those units are absorbed. So in the near term, we would expect rents to stay relatively stagnant while we continue to receive new supply. However, this is no cause for concern as the submarket has proven its ability to absorb supply historically. So one thing we want to look at why we believe downtown has been able to absorb this new supply is looking at migration stats to Harris County. So we see that some of the most popular cities people are moving from are places like Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, or San Diego. So individuals from these markets could find it more familiar to be in a denser market close to everything compared to kind of the Houston norm of having a house in the suburbs and commuting into the city when you need to do something. So second, it's also just a relatively small submarket still. I mean, at the end of 2013, there were just 2,600 units downtown. And despite nearly tripling our residential inventory in just a decade, you can see how the market responds with high levels of absorption following deliveries compared to years prior. So except from 2020 during the peak of COVID, downtown Houston has actually seen positive absorption every year since 2010. So overall, dense housing is being accepted by incoming residents, and because of this and a smaller inventory, we are pretty convinced that downtown will continue to perform and support these multifamily offerings.
Right, with that, we also wanted to lift up that in our report, we take a brief look back on 2023. This is Q4 after all. And so what we get asked all of the time, very good reason, is where are we post-pandemic? Have we, quote, recovered? We think that it's important for us to start speaking to this question more directly. And so in the report, we did share with you all statistic around worker volume. When compared to 2019, we saw about 67% of worker volume return on average over the course of 2023. And that figure was consistent in the last 2 quarters of 2023. But moreover, we saw an 85% return of visitor volume. What you can see on the right-hand side here is a chart that starts just slightly before the pandemic really rocked our worlds. And the rate of return, the yellow representing visitor return to downtown, and the blue representing employee recovery to downtown. We want to lift this up and start talking about it more because, frankly, we're in 2024 now. We're looking at a new normal. As you can see on the right-hand side of that chart, you can see a little bit of stabilizing. Hybrid realities are here to stay. Some folks will be coming back, some will be going fully remote. This is something that we want to lean into and better understand ourselves to figure out how do we as an organization stand up the right targeted incentive programs, but moreover, in conversations with you all and partnerships with you all, we want to make sure that you have the most relevant information and understand how this can help drive office tenancy nonetheless, and also justify investments in visitor design, destinations, and attractions. So with that, I'm going to toggle over to a new feature that we also launched around the time the quarterly report came out, which is not a recovery dashboard. We're intentionally not using that language, but an activity dashboard. We want to make it easy and accessible for you all to know at any time of the month, where is activity, where does it stand with downtown? And what does it mean? Moreover, what does it mean and how do I talk about it? So bear with me for a moment. This dashboard you can access on our research and reports page on our website, which I mentioned is underneath the Do Business tab at the top of the webpage. This is hosted on a platform called My Sidewalk, which makes it very easy for us to not only upload our primary data, but also access and utilize census data. What we've done here is we've uploaded data that we've pulled down from Placer that is custom pulled for our downtown district. And just for your point of reference, the district is including the part of downtown Houston bound by the freeways. So here you can toggle around, go month by month to understand what visitor recovery looked like, worker recovery, and combined. We also have included contextualizing information to help you make sense of this. And for those brokers out there, for people that are making decisions about their properties, we add the kind of context that we believe will help you make hard decisions. I want to just scroll down to a section of this report about our non-resident workers to further drive home points that I'd like to make about return to office. We explicitly call out this question: will return to office rates stay the same? This is a report that we like to reference. You may have heard me reference it before at another talk, which is a report published by our friends over in Philadelphia, Center City District. They essentially came up with a methodology or way of unpacking what the return to office looks like and how do we compare one city to the next. Something very important for Houston, not just downtown Houston, but for Houston to consider are things like our unique industry mixes in our CBDs, commute times, and other factors listed in this description here that might impact what return to office rates look like. One, for instance, that I like to drive home for folks is that if we apply the methodology developed by Center City District to the types of jobs in downtown Houston, it's estimated that approximately 47% of the jobs in downtown Houston can be done at home. What this means is that we can expect to have a hybrid work reality in downtown, given our current industry mix. Could that inform the types of industries we attract in the future? Absolutely. Could it inform the way in which we optimize the days that we know workers are in the office? By optimize, I mean how office space is configured, how we guide retailers in their decision-making? Absolutely. So we want you all to know that this information is here and available. And of course, we're open to feedback. We'd love to add more. That would be helpful for you. And I'll leave you with one of my favorite facts about downtown Houston is that there are now 3 times as many housing units in downtown since the launch of our Downtown Living Initiative program in 2012. We are committed to growing the residential population of downtown in tandem with our shoulder communities, transformations you can see occurring in the East End. And like Brendan mentioned, people are here for density in a way that they haven't been in the past. And so we'll continue to work on this as an organization and track it as part of our research. So to conclude, little preview for Q1, what we're going to be looking at: multifamily absorption, the impact of big events, college football championship, rodeo, updates on development projects, those that are under construction and proposed. We're working with the state right now to better unpack sales tax data, and we'll continue to look into alcohol sales data. We also want to report out the impact of new amenities and programs in our parks and green spaces, as well as lift up the storefront retail openings at street level, which we did in our report. You can find it in there. All right. The time we have left, we'd like to open up the floor for a conversation. Feel free to pop in any questions you might have into our chat. Let me flip on the camera.
Disabled and so does hers.
Okay.
There's a button at the bottom that says Q&A.
We're hearing that. Oh, here we go. The chat is disabled. People have to use Q&A. Yes, thank you. All right, we have one question. Can you unpack a bit more about the sales tax data that we're going to be looking into? So thank you for that question, Jackie. In the Q4 report, we actually were not able to utilize sales tax data. We did look at TABC data. And for that report, we chose to dig into how hotels perform in terms of being key drivers of alcohol sales. That was really an attempt to demonstrate the outsized impact that our hotels have and explaining, sort of backing up from there, the proportion of hotels that we have here in downtown. What we hope to do, what we're working on right now with the state is not only being able to look at sales tax data for all of downtown, but identifying our core retail nodes and pulling sales tax data for those specific nodes, as well as TABC data that complements those nodes, so that we can start talking about the unique types of performance that we can see within each one of those retail nodes. So stay tuned for custom sales tax reporting. We have another question. How does performance of retail at the street level in downtown compare to retail in the tunnels? You want to take a stab at that one, Brendan?
I believe that street level retail was higher occupancy, which we saw, and I guess one thing you could kind of infer, but the data confirmed it, was that the tunnel has a higher proportion of theirs are more service-based and strictly food and beverage. Whereas that is a lot of the street level retail as well, just being F&B, but there's just also more entertainment and nightlife based F&B versus more of just the daytime lunch crowd.
Right. So I think the statistics come out to from Q4, we saw about 80%, around 80% occupancy of our street level inventory and closer to 70 in our tunnels. Another fact is that I've heard a lot of folks speculate that there is, you know, in terms of retail spaces, it's split 50-50 between the tunnels and street level. But actually, in fact, much smaller percentage of our retail spaces are located in the tunnels. About 1 out of 4 retail spaces in downtown are located in the tunnels proper. That doesn't include internalized storefronts. So by internalized, I mean Green Street for point of reference with highlight. But in terms of our true tunnel network, it's only about 25% of our retail inventory. And within our doing business section of the Q4 report, we actually do a deep dive into our tunnel network, its history, and where we believe it's headed. All right. Great question. So the question is, we're moving to the docks at 1125 Providence, right behind UHD, off of the freeway feeder. Is this still considered a part of downtown Houston? We're a nonprofit fashion design house and we'll have retail aspect to our space. So I'm looking out the window right now because I can see this. And if you're just behind UHD, I think you fall out of what we consider to be our boundary, but I will speak to what we do care about, what we do track is performance of the warehouse district and the unique dynamic of the new housing, of the university, and of retail spaces that are north of the bayou. It's a very important area to us. And so we'd love to connect with you and talk to you all a little bit more about your aspirations and goals. But from what I understand about our unique retail mix is that and I was at an event on Saturday at Faded Decade. There's a very unique sort of gathering of businesses in the warehouse district that sound akin to the type of business that you're talking about. And it's a story that we want to help tell. So while it perhaps may not be directly in the little area that we consider to be sort of the warehouse district, what we track, what we call downtown, certainly seems as though we're kindred with that area, and we'd love to talk to you more if there's any way we can help provide more insights for you. All right. Sounds good. Thanks for the email. With that, what I'm gonna do is just sort of, I don't know, how great the camera looks, but I want to just hold up for you all in my hand. This is our quarterly report. We have physical copies. We would be happy to send out a copy to you should you want one. The way you can get in touch, that's a great question. The way you can get in touch with us My contact information is on our website. You can reach out to either me, Cassie Hobridge, or Brendan Harrison. My contact information is also at the end of this quarterly report. And it is also featured on the small business and storefronts page on our website. It's featured throughout, and if you just email our general email as well as our organization's sort of general contact, they can also redirect you to me as well. But please feel free to send your mailing address if you do want a copy of the physical report. It is something that we have already seen be quite helpful in having conversations with prospects, with folks that are considering a move within downtown, and other types of stakeholders. So we're here to be resourceful and helpful for you all. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate you being here today. Have a wonderful rest of your week and happy Valentine's Day.